So, I found this about the Bank for International Settlements, and I thought it was pretty good, and also it's a bit up to date, January 18th, and it's a Kitco commentary. So just want to show you that's how I found it. I typed in gold becomes a tier 1 asset class for banks, and this is really educational. So I'm going to read it, and thanks for taking time to listen because I want to learn too. I read it once, but it does take time to let these things sink in, especially when it has to do with history, money, because we all use money, right? We can't rent a place, we can't buy gas or food or anything. We all have to have money. We all want money to last longer, and we were never taught how to understand money or how to make money work for us. I mean, average people. We didn't study finance. So it's a real eye-opener becoming aware of and trying to get an understanding of the value of precious metals like gold and silver. Okay, so this is gold and Basel III. Alright, perhaps you've never heard of the Bank of International Settlements, BIS, located in Basel. I've been to Basel many times, but I didn't at that time. That was like 2004, 2005. At that time, I didn't know. I went to the art museums. Basel is famous for art museums and famous artists. So I went there for that reason. Didn't know about the Bank for International Settlements. Anyway, in Basel, Switzerland. Perhaps you have never heard of the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision. So we'll call that the BCBS from now on, or the supervisors. A separate legal entity with headquarters at the BIS. I'm going to say the long words because I think it's more clear. Bank of International Settlements. But these two regulatory bodies play a considerable, important role in the development of international banking supervisory standards. And as it happens, they also put forward propositions on how gold is to be seen by the banks. Interesting. The Bank of International Settlements was set up in 1930. Its goals and means have changed throughout the years, and today its main scope of activity is to provide central banks with credit when necessary and to help in achieving monetary and financial stability on an international level. What is that again? BCBS, the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision. I mean, just think, they supervise all the other banks. Was established in 1974 and is primarily concerned with coordinating banking supervisory activities. Both the Bank of International Settlements and the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision are organizations with history, but neither of them have legal power to enforce any changes in the law of its members. So they have a lot of power, but on the other hand, it proves that the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision has considerable influence among central banks all over the world. In 1988, the committee outlined what is currently known as Basel I, a set of recommendations on capital requirements. Okay, this is so important. Long story short, bank assets were divided into several groups based on their perceived riskiness. Bonds and gold were in the least risky category. That is fantastic information. And banks were required to cover 8% of their assets according to a special formula. The intuition, nice word, intuition, was that at least a part of all the assets of the bank should be backed by assets perceived as safe, including gold. Even though the Basel, oh no, now they changed it, BSCB, BCBS, okay, I think they mean the same thing. The Basel Committee for Banking Supervision did not have regulatory power. Its members adhered to its requirements, with the level of adherence varying among the countries. So it sets the standard for banks all over the world. And by the way, intuition is really important. Sometimes when I talk about the Holy Spirit, that's what I believe. You know, there's a life force, God, He made everything, and intuition is really, you know, it's trusting your gut. You know things without knowing how you know it. And the transhumanists, they want to give you artificial intuition. So don't let them do that to you. Say no to the chip and no to GMOs and Monsanto and the transhumanists. They want to make people into slave robots, so you would lose your natural intuition. Okay, that's just a side point. Okay, so gold was considered safe, perceived as safe, even though the Basel Committee for Banking Supervision did not have, okay, I already read that. In 2004, Basel II was introduced with more detailed recommendations on capital requirements, banking supervision, and market risk. Bank assets were divided into three categories, where Tier 1 encompassed assets perceived as least risky, and Tier 3 comprised of assets perceived as risky. The recommendations were amended multiple times. However, they failed to adequately identify the risks associated with structured credit products like mortgage-backed securities. These risks were severely underestimated or even not identified. As far as gold is concerned, under Basel II, it was treated as either Tier 1 or Tier 3 capital, since the Basel Committee for Banking Supervision stipulated that at national discretion, okay, each country could decide, gold bullion held in its own vaults or on an allocated basis to the extent backed by bullion liabilities can be treated as cash and therefore risk weighted at 0%. Gold risk weighted at 0%. Now let's make this absolutely clear. This excerpt comes from the Basel II documentation and not from Basel III. Okay, things have changed. So depending on the decision of the country, gold was either counted as Tier 1 or Tier 3 capital already under Basel II. Gold was also accepted as collateral with a supervisory haircut, or they could say with a supervisory theft of 15%. Yeah, they always, why do they call it haircut? That is such a dumb name. I'm sure there's another word that's better than that. Okay. The financial meltdown of 2009 prompted the Basel Committee for Banking Supervision to revise its recommendations and postulate more restrictive capital requirements. In 2010, the Basel Committee for Banking Supervision presented the first official version of its new recommendations, which was called Basel III. Basel III abolished the Tier 3 capital class. All assets fell either under Tier 1 or Tier 2 capital. Okay, so this was in 2010, and that's when they were saying gold would be a Tier 1 asset, could be used as money, and like before, be risk-free, zero risk. But it didn't happen. Under these recommendations, gold remained eligible collateral with a haircut theft of 15% or voluntary contribution to whoever, just as it was under Basel II. So who gets that 15%? Is that for salaries or what? Moreover, the announcement of the U.S. Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation made on June 18, 2012, and stating that gold bullion is a 0% risk-weighted item, an item perceived as riskless, similarly as Tier 1 capital, brought no change to banking capital rules with respect to gold. So I think in bankers' terms and in their minds, their perception is that it is risk-free, riskless, and that's why they're accumulating it, although they are always bad-mouthing gold and silver in the mainstream media because they don't want little normal people to have it. And they're trying to shake people out. Similarly, as Tier 1 capital brought no change to banking capital rules with respect to gold, as the FDIC spokesperson claimed. So, gold was considered riskless in the U.S. under Basel II recommendations, and it will remain considered this way under Basel III provisions. No change has been brought about. Did you know that? That is really fascinating. I'm trying to grasp this as I read it too. The situation looks slightly different in Europe. If you remember, under Basel II, gold could be considered a riskless asset at national discretion. So each country could decide. The EU consists of 27 countries, each with its different supervisory regulations. But I think Basel still rules. The European Commission did not automatically consider gold a riskless asset, but charged the European Banking Authority with the task of identifying which assets are to be legally deemed riskless. On the other hand, the European Parliament expressly pointed to gold as a highly liquid asset that should be taken into consideration by the European Banking Authority. The European Banking Authority review is scheduled to end in 2015. Gold is, however, already recognized as collateral. Of course it is. If you feel in any way lost in the jungle of banking regulations relating to gold, do not worry. We have pointed out the most important things you need to know. Basel III does not in any significant way change the way the U.S. regulators see gold. How do they see it? Bernanke said it's not money, it's tradition, something like that, but he's lying. Gold has not become the legal tender in any country adhering to Basel III rules. Basel III is not a shift toward a gold standard, contrary to what has been rumored, but it's still considered risk-free, I'm pretty sure. The general regulatory trend in the EU seems to point to the inclusion of gold as a riskless asset. Riskless. That means safe. Don't worry. If you have gold, keep it. What does all of this mean for you? Generally speaking, if gold is officially confirmed as riskless asset by the European Banking Authority, then an increase in demand for gold may be seen in the EU. Such an increase, however, would not be a main driver of the price of gold. So, Basel III is not a major factor in the continuing gold bull market. Favorable fundamentals for gold, even without a positive impact from Basel III, are still in place. This is bolded, and in the long-term trend, remains up. Thank you for reading, and have a great and profitable week. This is who wrote this. Okay, so someone else said, even if you have gold and silver and it went down by 20%, wouldn't you rather have gold and silver in your hand and it goes down by 20% than having your money in the bank like in Cyprus and they take it away from you, half of your money? So consider these things and consider this writer. You know, it seems like he's got some facts, but thank you for listening, and may God bless you with wisdom and truth and guide your life in the direction it should go so you can live your perfect purpose. Okay, bye for now. Talk to you later.